I was in a lot of different homes until my high school years, and I was pretty much in the same place for all of high school. Junior high and high school were probably the most difficult, because junior high is when you're kind of forming your identity, and everybody in that age group is trying to, have an image or, project what they want other people to know and see about them. And when I first went into junior high, I was at a pretty diverse school. It was every race imaginable and highly populated with Hispanics. So in order to fit in, I immediately kind of clicked in with like the Hispanic group, started acting like them, dressing like them, using the same kind of slang, like doing my makeup like the girls did, and then I would get made fun of at home for doing that. As I got older, it became more difficult because I was surrounded by nothing but Caucasian people, and so I had to try and fit in with them and not distinguish myself too much from the crowd. A lot of my friends tell me that I'm like whiter than them, a lot of my Caucasian friends, I guess because I don't speak with an accent, or I don't have a green card or whatever. Being in foster care doesn't help because you don't know your ancestry, you don't know what side of your family is what, and you have no foundation to refer back to. You don't know who you are in general, let alone your ethnicity. Like, okay, I knew that I was Mexican and whatever, I spoke Spanish, therefore I was Mexican. Like, I didn't even know I had Native American in me or Spanish. I didn't know that until like the past few years. I always thought I was just plain old Mexican from Mexico. For a long time, I just rejected it. I didn't want to speak Spanish. I didn't want to, I didn't want to go down to Mexico and think that, that could be me. I didn't want to be noticed at all. Yeah, my struggle has been more internal than anything in terms of identifying who I am. Luckily, I was blessed with a really good social worker who cared about me. I mean, she helped me a lot, and it's all kind of made me who I am and made me be able to accept who I am.
Race and ethnicity is about who you are, where you come from. It identifies how you fit in the world. So I think that when young people are in foster care, oftentimes they don't always have the opportunities to get to know who they are in the context of their family or community, because they've been removed or placed in another environment.
Race is an uncomfortable subject for most to talk about. It brings up so many internal issues and uncomfortable issues, and racism and white privilege and internalized racism and all of those subjects that are just so painful to talk about, but really need to be talked about. The good things about being Indian. When I grew up, I heard that Indian people were drunk and lazy and were this and that, and I learned to deal with that. I learned to cope with that. But when I had children, I shielded them from that, and they didn't know what it was to be called a drunken Indian. And I remember when my son came home in the 3rd grade, and he was shocked, and he said, I was called a good-for-nothing Indian. And I can't think of anything about Indian that's bad. And on one hand, that was very good. I thought, he's proud of being Indian, that's very good. But on the other hand, I didn't prepare him. I didn't prepare him to deal with racism, to deal with the negative aspects that people project on us.
Coming up with a racial, cultural, personal, ethnic identity is extremely personal. Only you can decide who you are, where you're going, what you are. And number two, with youth growing up, that's their full-time job. That's what they're doing. That's what they're supposed to be doing. That's what racism is someone else deciding who you are, or what you're like, or what they can expect from you.
Ethnically, I identify myself as a Samoan, and that's because of my last name, which is a Samoan last name, but people assume that I'm either married or something else other than that being my ethnicity. But culturally, I never really had developed any type of cultural identity except for being a foster kid. Because being moved around into different foster homes since the age of 5, I've kind of adapted myself to that culture. And for me, experiencing the culture, I've just experienced betrayal and some bad things, but I've always known myself to be a foster kid, and I openly tell everyone that since I was in high school.
My son was in 6 foster homes. He was only gone 9 months, and he was in 6 placements. He ended up in a group home, and it wasn't a good situation. It wasn't the nicest neighborhood or the nicest place. It was just like a staff of people. He wasn't with a family. Just after every visit, it just tears your heart out. It could make me cry right now. It just really tears your heart out, you know, that my choices put him in a situation that I definitely did not want him in.
Well, when I moved to Richmond and in this foster home, there was a lot of different type of people, and they always tried to get me to be like them. And right across the street there was a basketball court. A lot of people there that was doing drugs and shooting dice, and gangbangers there shooting each other all the time. Foster care actually showed me who I really wanted to be, what I wanted to be, and what I didn't want to be.
I don't know how to really teach him to be proud to be black. They might not think that culture or race really matters to people, but then they get outside of their own box and then they see that it does.
Some foster kids really don't want race to matter, and I have come to believe that there are a couple of reasons. As an adolescent youth, fitting in and being just like everybody else is number one for them, and being a foster child makes them different already.
I still got issues sometimes because I grew up in so many different places and so many different atmospheres and cultures. I've been in black homes, Asian homes, white homes, Hispanic homes, and they weren't all understanding of my own culture and my own identity. And sometimes I had to adapt to their standards in order to survive.
A person of color growing up in a white, pretty racist culture, there's some certain things you have to learn. For survival, you have to learn it, you know? And the sad thing about foster kids and our whole foster culture is we've taken away people's pasts. That's the whole setup, is you learn that from your culture. Native Americans, African Americans, 500 years of experience on how to deal with that. But you could put a kid in a white home when they're not able to reach back and find out, what do you do when someone calls me the N-word? What do I do when I feel really good about something and I lay it out and everybody's looking at me weird? You know, there's that connection. That's a big part to me of culture identity, is that connection. Where do you go? Where do you reach out? Who do you touch? And we cut that off. We need a way to nurture that and keep that coming back and have mentors, relatives, somewhere that you can reach back and say, you know what, someone's done this before, help me out here.
I don't think you help somebody else explore themselves, that you're not exploring yourself and you're not looking and seeing how you fit into it or how you react to it or how you feel about it. And youth are all at all different stages of ethnic identity, and they're in different places with feeling okay about who they are ethnically, racially, in terms of their neighborhood and their family. So if you have a good relationship with the youth, then it goes pretty smooth.
It begins with the social worker. You know what I'm saying? And it's up to that worker who to help create those connections. You know, to try to open the channel or get what she can from the biological parent to pass that on to the foster parent. It's about collaboration.
I was at It's My Life conference with the African American group, and I was saying, you know, especially with the African American males, you have to have mentors, you have to have role models. I can't teach an African American male what they need to know to navigate their lives or the streets or whatever. But 3 African American adult males in the group were like, oh, you have to. Oh, it's your job. And afterwards, they were so sweet. They came up to me and they're like, I want you to understand what we were saying. We were saying that you need to be responsible for the outcome for that youth. You need to make sure that that youth understands you have high expectations for them and that your own ego is bound up with the outcomes for that youth so that you're going to do everything within your power to make sure they're successful.
Yes. I would like the social workers to look at themselves and the foster families to look at themselves first and see where they stand and how they feel with ethnicity. It's something that they need to be comfortable with themselves before they can reach out to the foster child. It's something that they need to either be educated and challenge themselves to deal with first.
It's the fear of talking about race and ethnicity. And being able to hear and acknowledge the pain that I think we've all touched on is not easy. And I think people back away from it and they try to talk above it. And I think that is a short term, but in the long term, it's the worst solution because it's going to leave the young people feeling that it's not worth talking about. So it's an invalidation of who they are. It's an invalidation of the struggles that they're going through.
I agree. We have the tendency when we got Michael, who's black, our first child that wasn't of our race, was to feel like it's better not to talk about it. Well, that was wrong right off the bat. Treat it like the elephant in the room. Well, we now have a young man who is an Eskimo and he's proud of it, you know, and we talk about it, who we are and where we came from, and to treat it like it's something not to talk about is to treat it like it's something wrong, and it certainly is not.
Social workers need to know that they have your lives in their hands.
The sooner that you figure out where you're from, what you stem from, what's in your genes, what's in your blood, then that way it just makes it easier to follow suit and learn more about yourself and to create your own identity.
Luckily, I was blessed with a really good social worker who cared about me. I mean, she helped me a lot, and it's all kind of made me who I am and made me be able to accept who I am.
You know, the social worker might be the only person that these children have that's stable in their lives, you know, and I just want the social workers to know how important it is for the kids' self-esteem for them to do some research and some work and some acceptance of themselves so that they can help these children out.
Understanding how important race and ethnicity is to youth, it's not an option, it's not ancillary, this is the work. And I know that. I know it's very true, and this is the work. And a youth who has a healthy racial and ethnic identity is going to be successful, and that's the work.